Moving on to our first panel of the evening, I would like to invite Akhtar Badhshah to introduce his panel and co-panelists. A little bit about Akhtar. Akhtar is an architect by training. He is also an author. He is the director of the Accelerating Social Transformation Program at the University of Washington and a former senior executive at Microsoft responsible for leading Microsoft's global philanthropy efforts for over 10 years. Akhtar, welcome, and over to you.
Thank you all very much, and thank you to Indiaspora for inviting me to be part of this. MR is a force of nature, and what he has put together is just amazing, and it was so fascinating to hear Mary and her wonderful voice and song. And I have so many questions for Professor Devesh on the report, but I thought that this might require a separate conversation. Just to set the stage, we have two fascinating panelists who are showing how individually you can come together to make change. As pointed out, we are living in an incredible time. Every community is facing challenges, and this is the time for all of us to move from our individual growth to a collective impact and to extend the common book, the common good. My book, Purpose Mindset, focuses on that, which is getting people to go beyond the growth mindset that we all in the industry know about, and using growth and growth mindset and extending it to benefit the community by creating movements for social change. Movements like Sachi, who's going to be speaking later on, has created with her entrepreneurship work, or Alex Kant, who's here in the screen, who created with the Green Foundation and working with Professor Mohammed Yunus around microfinance. So we are in this very fascinating time. So I hope that you get a chance to look at my book, which is focused on my time at Microsoft. But now let me just invite our panelists to share a few words of the work that they are doing. We have three fascinating people, Aradhana and Raj Asava, who have started this amazing effort to reduce hunger and HungerMitao in the US. Shailaja Akkapeddi, she is an independent consultant, but before that, she's actually been working for the IRC, which is the International Relief Council, and has focused on immigrants and migrants in this country. And I'm just trying to find my panelists on the screen, and Deepak Chopra, who has this organization that is focused on empowering youth to get employed with his Freedom Employability Academy. So let me ask Aradhana and Raj to start off and share a few words about the work that they're doing and why they started getting involved in this space.
Sure. Thank you, Akhtar. Thank you, Akhtar. And can you hear us okay?
Yeah, yes.
Perfect. Great. Good evening. Thank you, Indiaspora, for this opportunity for us to be able to share our passion with you all. Raj and I have lived in the USA for a collective 83 years. Collective. He came to the US 45 years ago and started out as a dishwasher and retired about 10 years ago as the Chief Strategy Officer for Perot Systems, which was acquired by Dell Services. That's a testimonial, I believe, to the fact that this truly is a land of opportunity. About 11 years ago, we decided to give up our corporate jobs to purposefully
spend our limited currency, our time on this planet, doing things that we always wanted to do. Our kids were grown and they were on their own 2 feet, and we had enough to live out our life in a desired comfort level. We both wanted to travel, see the world, spend time with aging parents and family members, and do things meaningful to us.
And then something changed.
Something changed.
About 5 years ago, we learned about the lurking hunger in America. It was apparently a huge issue.
Shocking.
Kids going to school where our children went faced hunger. Actually, our own region of North Texas was home to almost 850,000 people who were food challenged. Across US, we learned more than 40 million people needed assistance with food.
Yeah, shocking.
We were stunned about our findings.
Yeah.
We dug deeper. We learned that the stats were indeed true. We were surprised that this hunger issue had never come up in our social circles. A collective lack of awareness was the only reason we could assign this to. So if hunger was an issue in this land,
Yeah.
there really was something we needed to do about it. Because we have adopted this land as our country, was it not our responsibility to also engage and be part of the solution? It seemed like it was not only the right thing to do, but it was also in our best interest to be seen as an engaged community.
So we decided to do something about it. An issue this pervasive needed a sustaining engagement model. We put our corporate learnings of many decades to work. My strategy background, Anna's process and system thinking guided us in the shaping of a very unique community-driven model, which we call HungerMitao. Anna and I resisted the urge to start something from scratch. Having been witness to the scale, reach, and efficiencies of the food bank system, we decided that Feeding America and the 200 food banks in its network would be an organization to put our resources and throw our support behind.
But our individual resources were limited. So we decided to start a collaborative movement. Since we had most influence in the Indian American community, we started there. We committed 3 years of our lives to the food banks.
It has already gone to 5 years, Anna.
But that's okay. We are lifetimers. We wanted that much time to stand up HungerMitao, which means wipe out hunger. This is a movement, not an organization. We would evangelize within the Indian community the need for hunger relief and the work of the food banks. We got busy organizing active volunteering, food and fund drives, because our giving needed to be unified to have an impact that would be noticeable.
That was very important. Long story short, the community loved it. The movement caught on fire. Word spread. Other food banks called us to capitalize on this unique model of community engagement. We found others who were as passionate as us and willing to lead this movement in other cities. And would you believe it? Just 2 days ago, on September 29th, we celebrated 3-year anniversary of HungerMitao by crossing a huge milestone of having enabled the Indian American community through HungerMitao, enabled 30 million meals, 30, for Feeding America and its network of food banks. So this is our passion, as you can see, and how we got started, that's another story altogether in length. But Akhtar, I'll hand it back to you as our opening remarks and look forward to some good Q&A.
Thank you so very much with your amazing story, Aradhana and Rajan. This is so inspiring for all of us. Let me now ask Shailaja if she can share a bit about her work and the impact that she hopes to have with what she's now planning to start.
Thank you, Akhtar, and thank you, Indiaspora, for inviting me to join this panel. An amazing story, Rajan and Anas. So my journey has been slightly different. I came to the US 30 years back to go to graduate school, and I've worked in the nonprofit sector for over 15 years now. Recently, like Akhtar mentioned, I worked with the International Rescue Committee and several other organizations, but more recently, I've been doing independent work. So the way I'm giving back is most of my work is skills-based volunteering, if you will. So what I'm trying to, so I'm still very connected to my two big passions really are working with resettled refugees in Salt Lake City, where I live. And also I'm very connected to the nonprofit sector in India. So, my journey started with my first job at the Salt Lake Community College, where I got to work with women entrepreneurs, refugee entrepreneurs here locally, and I helped them start and scale small businesses. And I also got an opportunity to work with an NGO in India, similar kind of a project where I went to India, traveled to India, and helped women entrepreneurs, in a marginalized community start businesses. So, this has been these are my two passions. And like Mary mentioned, and very rightly so, I'm trying to marry my passion with purpose, and this is what I've been doing for a while now. So a couple of projects that I worked during COVID, I can talk, just to tell you what I do. I worked with an NGO, community-based organization in India, and I helped them, they were trying to assess the impact of COVID on their marginalized community, which is primarily made of Dalits and Muslims and migrants. So they were trying to assess the impact of the lockdown on gender-based violence in their community. So I was able to help them do a gender analysis because that's part of my background. I was able to create a framework and analyze their interview data and things like that. On the local scene, I worked with the International Rescue Committee recently during COVID and helped refugee entrepreneurs who were trying to start a home-based childcare program. So I built a training workshop for them and during COVID and helped them get their businesses started. All this via Zoom, which was kind of interesting by itself because these women, on the one hand, we were trying to start them with businesses. They did not even have devices, and we were trying to go online with them. So we had to get them devices, computers, laptops, teach them how to use Zoom, and then get on the work, and do the workshops. So it was an interesting process, but it was successful. So that's kind of a couple of projects that I worked on. And I also am involved with the First Generation Scholarship Program. So I work with the local university and the students there. I have 4 mentors. I'm on the board, and I also have 4 mentors with refugee backgrounds. I'm trying to help them get through their education successfully by supporting them. And a lot of stuff has come up during the COVID period, and I was able to help them. And maybe I'll speak about that later when I get an opportunity with other questions. Back to you, Akhtar.
Shailaja, thank you so much. Let me move on to Deepak Chopra. Deepak, could you just share your work and what drives you to do this?
Thank you. Happy to, and hello, everyone. Freedom Employability Academy. So as the name suggests, we are about employability as opposed to education. What we do is focus on disadvantaged youth in a very specific age group, late teens, early 20s. This is the time in somebody's life when they make career choices and decisions they make then, they kind of end up with living with for the rest of their lives. So we've been developing programs for youth that has not really received a high quality education because for no fault of theirs, they were born in low income families. And essentially going through life without much of an education really, really handicaps you. So we operate in about 12 different cities in North India. We have about a little more than 100 branches where the students come in for classes every day, 6 days a week for a year. In that 1 year, we don't teach them stuff. The big thing that we teach is learning how to learn, becoming adaptable, being able to communicate, collaborate, work in teams, ethics, the importance of ethics, the importance of giving back, the importance of having a sense of community. Along with that and other such personal skills, or they're also called non-cognitive skills, we build English language skills to a level that makes you effective in the workplace. Because again, it's all about employability. And then the last thing that we work on is getting our students adept at using online resources. So if you think about a girl living in a slum in Mathura, which is a small town in India, for those of you that may not have heard of the name, she has very few resources, but we've helped her figure out a way to do an online course offered by Stanford University. We built in her the persistence and the determination to stick with it, even though it's hard, it's challenging, but she's figured she has the self-confidence and the determination to stick with it and go all the way through. We're a team of about 600 people. We have the capacity to educate about 32,000 students every year, and we're growing at the rate, were growing before the wind got knocked out of our sails by the pandemic, but it'll come back. We're finding anecdotally that our program enables youth to double and triple their income, and in some cases even quadruple their income. So that's a pretty significant outcome. And in fact, researchers from Stanford University are conducting a randomized control trial to evaluate the impact of the program, because if it works as well as it appears to be, then it's a model that perhaps many others might find interesting. Akhtar, you said 3 minutes, so I'll shut up now. Back to you.
Deepak, thank you very much. And again, just fascinating work. And I'd love to see the studies that come out. Let me just go back to Shailaja and Ashish. We have probably time for a few minutes to ask a couple of questions. And Shailaja, you kind of left us hanging by not giving us an example of people that you have touched. And I would love for you to, give us a couple of examples of the impact that you've had.
Yeah, so one of my earliest memories working with a local resettled refugee family was, I helped them, they were getting ready for their citizenship test. And so I used to go bi-weekly to their home and teach them civics classes to get ready for their citizenship test. And these are people, they were a Burmese family. They did not really know much, they didn't have much English at all, but they were studying this for this test. And we worked on it for 3 months, I think, and they did pass the test. They got their citizenship, and I got to be part of their swearing-in ceremony, which was very, very special. So, these are the kinds of things why I do what I do. With my first generation scholars, during COVID, 2 of the girls, actually, I'll talk about one, her whole family lost employment because, they were working as janitors and other different jobs. And she is only 20 years old, but she is essentially had to be the adult in the family because she's the only one who speaks English, who knows how to communicate, pick up the phone and talk to the different government agencies and things like that. And for a 20-year-old, that's a lot. And, so she would call me. So I was her support person. So she'd call me pretty much every day, to fill in things like, how do you do unemployment? How do you file for unemployment and things like that. So just being able to be there for her as a mentor. I had another girl, one of my other girls, one of her family members had COVID, and she, again, being 19, she still had to be the adult in the family and step up and take care of, just communicating with hospitals, driving, everything, because the rest of the family members don't do any of that. And since she's the first person to go to college and understands the system, she's expected to do it, and which she did, but she also needs support. She's only 19 years old. And again, I was able to help them. Both of them come from refugee families. So, these are the kinds of things that I'm able to help with. And it's why I do what I do. So, yeah.
Great, thank you. Aradhana and Raj, you crossed what, 30 million meals served. Tell us a little more about what has been that impact on individuals. And then what might be an ask from this gathering of 90 people of how they might continue to support what you're doing?
Thank you, Akhtar. I mean, first and foremost, through 30 million meals that just the Indian community has done over the last 3 years, you'll be surprised to know that Feeding America and their network of food banks provide billions of meals during the same time frame. So we are really a very small part of the fantastic work that Feeding America and their food banks are doing. And majority of these stories, the success stories, you may call it, where it's expected that after COVID, or as we are going through COVID, 40% of United States, 40% of people will not know where their next meal is coming from, right? So thank goodness for Feeding America and their network of food banks, and they have numerous stories. There's a bank of stories. So we don't necessarily get to hear directly from what they call the client, but interesting thing I want to share with you, that we believe through HungerMitao, we are addressing both sides of the equation. For example, not just the feeding people who are in need, but interesting thing we are finding is that those from the Indian community, once they realize that the hunger issue is huge over here, and they get engaged through HungerMitao for volunteering, for food drive, for funds drive, etc., they are finding that to be very satisfying. Youth to senior citizens are getting involved in this thing. And several people have told us, and I mean in hundreds, right, Anna?
Yeah.
Several people have told us that their dinner conversation has changed. The children no longer talk about the new iPhone. They don't talk about the video games. Having been out there and volunteering, they are now asking and they're quizzing their parents, we have plenty. How can we help those who are in need? So that to Anna and I is very, very satisfying.
I think that's the most gratifying thing at all, totally.
Yeah.
The engagement is very gratifying.
Well, thank you very much. And going back to Deepak, your story about this girl from Mathura being able to actually do an online course on Stanford, I think is just fascinating. But you probably have some examples of how people's lives have been transformed because of what you have done to get people employed or on a livelihood path.
If you look at our website, there's a video clip of this young man in Agra who talks about the fact that growing up, he frequently had only one meal a day. In the video, he walks us through his father's tea shop because his father is a tea cellist to date. That's what he does even now. This young man has started his own business as a photographer and has employees now. So that's a pretty dramatic change for someone that, had food issues. I've had, because of the number of students that have gone through our program, we just have countless stories like this of lives being transformed. Yesterday, out of the blue, this young man called me up to ask some questions, but turns out he's an FEA graduate who's made his way to the US, and he's gotten into college over here, has whatever going on helping him out, and he has a part-time job. And he comes from a place called Village Naya Bans. If you Googled it and looked at the images of that village, you kind of see this isn't what you would expect a person from this village would end up doing.
Thank you. I mean, so let me just end. I know that we have used up more of our time, by just, first of all, thanking all of you for your amazing work, your amazing stories, and the commitment just to the broader community. Purpose and finding purpose that allows you to move what you know, the wealth, and it's not just money. but the wealth that you as an individual bring, your intellect and your connections, can make a huge difference. And if we all did that in this time, where so many people are stepping up, and yet there is such a need, I think as a community of Indians, the diaspora here can truly make a massive change. So thank you all very much for listening to us. And Ashish, thank you very much for giving us this opportunity, and back to you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Akhtar. And thank you, Anna and Raj, Shailaja and Deepak for a great panel. 4 amazing examples of diaspora giving. Thank you for everything you all are doing, really. Thank you very much.